Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome into this community update. Being that it's Tuesday, we're going to check in with the 3PL guru herself, Mary O'Connell. Mary, thank you for joining us.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me. I've never been so honored to have the Tuesdays associated with me because honestly, it's much better than a Monday or even like a Wednesday. Tuesday I am okay with.
And then you can also have your tacos a little bit later, too. Maybe while you're watching Check Call, today's episode,
I mean,
can you kind of give us a
honestly,
little...
I was gonna say honestly, as it's kind of synonymous. Check call, tacos, Taco Tuesday. It's the only way to really get the maximum enjoying experience. The only thing that would make it better is obviously if you had a hot dog with it too, but we'll save that for the episode later.
Right. So it's a good way to bounce back after a Monday as well. But Mary, can we go ahead and get into like who your guest is on this episode and kind of like what y'all get into?
Yeah, so today we take it back to some familiar faces for me, at least. We go back to Sunset Transportation, which is one of the places that I had worked at previously, and we get to talk to the one and only John Sutton. He's the director of corporate strategy there, and really we kind of break down something that when I worked at Sunset, I noticed that we did a little bit differently, but we did differently in kind of a good way, was kind of that carrier performance monitoring. And it wasn't just like, oh, here's a scorecard, here you go, have a nice day. It was really kind of more of that collaborative approach of, okay, well, we truly are a partnership. We want to thrive where you thrive. We want to see you succeed where you succeed. And so we really kind of dug into what their process is that makes them so successful with, having repeat carriers, developing those relationships, and really making sure that they have just kind of the strongest network possible.
So, Mary, what are some of the key metrics that Sunset Transportation is looking for with their data?
Yeah, so they really take funny that you mentioned with their data, because they really take a data analysis part of things. They look at the whole picture of it. So whether it's, so that way, if, you have a report that says, oh, this carrier has been late on 5 out of 10 loads, they're late 50% of the time. It's not just automatically going to get them kicked out or get them moved down to like a lower tier of, not necessarily like the first round. It's going to get them moved down to a lower tier. They stop and say, okay, well, what are those loads that they're failing on? Is it because it's a certain receiver? Is it because it's a certain warehouse? Is it because we've given them too many loads? What is it? And so whether that's literally just calling and saying, hey, what's going on with these, or something else, like for instance, one of the things that they found was there was one carrier that out of one office they had no problems with. It was perfect, like wonderful. And then anytime they used another office, they had some problems with it. So it literally just came down to, okay, well, we're going to send all of our loads up through this one particular office. So that way that carrier isn't negatively impacted just because one of their other offices is struggling. So, and they kind of redirected everything up there because ultimately they want to foster that relationship. They want to see those carriers succeed and thrive. And that's something that, you really do want a 3PL and a freight brokerage to say, okay, we are invested in you, not just like, well, this report showing me that you were late 50% of the time. Good luck. You're going to have to just fight your way back to get more loads. That's not something that you want, unless obviously that person is really messing up. But you really want to say, okay, is it just a glitch? Is it one driver that you're having? What is the root cause of this problem? So that way you can kind of address it and make a plan moving forward, especially if it's someone that you've worked with for a long time.
So compliance, kind of hint on that a little bit. How do they ensure that a carrier will be compliant with their standards?
So they really, when they first kind of bring a carrier on, it's not like, oh, hey, you responded to a load board. You're one of our carriers now. We're going to give you all this load. It really is one of those where if you have a historic record of saying, okay, we have all of these things, like we have delivered on time so many times, and you kind of express that interest of having a good safety record. You are willing to provide your insurance information and just kind of, be a good carrier, then they're going to say, all right, great, we love this. And they're going to start looking at, okay, what lanes can we put you on and other stuff like that. They really do look at where carriers succeed, and whether that's, with specific freight, like automotive or produce or something like that, they will really strive to match those carriers with the freight profile that works really well for them. So like they like working with great carriers. There's always plenty of space for more fantastic carriers, but it's really about getting into figuring out what makes someone a good carrier. And then also, if you have someone that is a good carrier and they just kind of fall by the wayside, and you're not necessarily afraid to kick them out if they do start making some serious mistakes that aren't like, that's not just like, oh, we got late, we got stuck in traffic, stuff like that. Like if they are making serious mistakes and failing to adhere to kind of those accepted guidelines and everything like that, then that's where they really come in and say, okay, I think we're going to just kind of dial back what we're giving you to something more manageable, and then we can evaluate from there if we can increase or maybe have to decrease some of those loads again.
So does technology play a role at all in monitoring carrier compliance with Sunset?
Oh, absolutely. So the technology aspect is honestly one of the most important parts, because they sit there and they go, okay, they use that data that they collect from carriers, from on-time shipments, from anything else. They use that to kind of fuel and boost up the carriers that are, obviously meeting and succeeding. So they want to make sure that those carriers that are good to them and have a good working relationship, they want to make sure that those guys are taken care of, because obviously that's what you want to do in any kind of business like this. Freight is very relationship based still. It's very relationship heavy. So as long as people are able to kind of still leverage those relationships and take them to the next level, that's only going to continue to be more successful for carriers and Sunset. And data honestly is pretty much the fastest way to get that accomplished.
So where is the future of carrier performance and compliance evolving to over the next several years, Mary, and especially in light of technology and whatnot?
I think it's going to be really important. I think it could go one of two ways. I think everyone's going to get too far into like the scorecarding and other aspects of that technology. I think they're going to go too far down that rabbit hole, to the point where they're kind of going to miss that bigger picture of, okay, well, maybe we have the wrong office. We're working through the wrong office for all of our stuff. I think that could potentially be something that we see, but I think it's going to honestly, hopefully develop into a more of a holistic approach where you do have that data component, you do have that monitoring, you do have that track and trace component, but you also do have a little bit of understanding that, drivers aren't just numbers. They are people at the end of the day who are going to have to pick up your loads and drop them off and deal with them. And there's going to be problems and conflicts with a shipper. And it's just a matter of, I think it's really going to help identify the right freight profile and the right type of loads for a carrier to have within your own individual freight broker 3PL network.
Mary, as always, it's such a pleasure to have you joining us on this Tuesday. If people want to tune in to Check Call, or if they need a little bit more than just the episode, how can they get that?
Well, if you grab your tacos for lunch, then you can go and watch Check Call, the show on YouTube at 12:30 Eastern or anywhere else you get your podcasts. And then if that's not quite enough or you need a little afternoon pick me up, Check Call the newsletter does come out at 2 p.m. on straight to your inboxes, and you can subscribe to that on freightwaves.com/checkcall.
Mary, thanks again for joining us for this community update. We'll talk to you on Friday.
Bye, guys.